The biggest reason I gave for why I predicted Nebraska to dominate Colorado was that it was clear to me that the Cornhuskers had the far superior overall roster. And last night in Memorial Stadium, at night, with the balloons being released into the atmosphere for the first time in many seasons, that was abundantly clear. It was so bad, the level of separation between these teams, the distance between Buffalo players and Cornhusker players, that objectively, even factoring in the circumstances that these quarterbacks were placed under, Nebraska had the better quarterback. That's mind-blowing, to be quite frank, because Raiola did not even have this phenomenal Heisman performance. It was just when you're Shadur Sanders throwing what everyone on the screen can tell is a pick six, when you're holding on to the ball too long, when you average 6.4 yards per pass attempt, and you don't even come alive and do much of anything until the second half, when Nebraska has already put the game away, it's just not a good look. Colorado came out, and their strength, the only strength on the team, the passing offense, was 23 for 40 for 244 yards, averaging 6.1 yards per pass attempt, a touchdown, a pick. The receivers combined averaged only 10.6 yards per completion. Travis Hunter was probably still the best player on the field, although Nash Hutmacher was certainly up there with his performance, bullying Colorado's offensive line. Hunter had 10 receptions for 110 yards, and he carried Colorado's offense. And he made some plays on defense, too. But that was the difference between Nebraska and Colorado that I identified in the preview. Colorado is they're a box of Legos that hasn't been figured out yet, and they have one masterpiece. I'm not even going to say two anymore. Just one. It's Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is an elite player, a beast in college football. And imagine what Nebraska could do with him on their team. Colorado doesn't have a team. Nebraska does. And before we dive in and dissect this bludgeoning, I want you to subscribe to the channel, to click the notification bell, to like this video, and to share it around to other college football fans, Nebraska fans, Colorado fans, any college football fans that you know. Share the video around. It'll help us get more subscribers, more likes, more viewers, help us get into the algorithm. Consequently, that helps us earn more here on College Football with Sam. And if you want to support us in an extra way monetarily, directly, you can go to my Patreon page via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment and sign up for a membership there. But again, like the video to help us get into the algorithm. Comment your thoughts down below so that we can interact with you. I love to interact with the comment section, whether I'm right in this case, wrong in the case of like Michigan versus Texas, Iowa versus Iowa State, which I know, great week for Nebraska fans. It looks like, well, based off of what we've seen, they could very well be better than both Michigan and Iowa. The Big Ten, it's weak this season. It's much weaker than it. I can't even believe I'm about to say this. It's weaker than it was last year. The quality of teams at the top right now look the same, if not worse. There is no 2023 Michigan outside of maybe Ohio State, and I need to see them play somebody. And then there's a drop-off. I mean, Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State last year were power-rated top 5, top 4 for much of the season. And if Penn State just had a decent offensive game plan, they could have been natty contenders last season. Then you factor in Washington and Oregon, who last year were in the Pac-12, this year in the Big Ten. Their counterparts from last season are miles ahead of what they are this year. Same goes with Michigan from last year to this year. Nebraska can take advantage of this Big Ten. I said in a live stream with Corn Craze that I thought next season Nebraska could compete for the Big Ten championship. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to say yet. The fact that I'm even considering that this year is bananas. But that's how weak this conference is right now. The SEC is clearly above everyone else, and I don't want to get off track. But Nebraska fans, man, they had a phenomenal weekend. Iowa losing, the Big Ten looking more wide open, and they earn a massive, massive win here. Hit that notification bell so that you can get notified when we release more Nebraska football content or any other college football content here on College Football with Sam. But let's continue to dive in here and just briefly talk more about the game, and then I'll get into Colorado. We saved the best for last year on College Football with Sam, unless it's just an absolute dominant performance, with this game being that. So you'll hear Nebraska throughout the whole thing. There won't be a dedicated Colorado segment just because of the bludgeoning that Nebraska gave them. The yardage totals were 334 for the Huskers, 260 for the Buffaloes. That's very deceiving. Colorado had 2 turnovers. Nebraska had none. They won the turnover battle. Nebraska had 22 first downs to Colorado's 15. They had 35 minutes of possession to Colorado's 24. That, in truth, is probably the most accurate statistic, along with the fact that Colorado was 1 of 3 on 4th down, 4 of 14 on 3rd down. They had 2 4th and 1, 4th of inches type plays. They ran the ball, and Nebraska didn't just stonewall them. They walked them back by about 2 yards on both of those runs. This defense that Tony White's running is legit. It's out of this world. Nebraska has not seen a defense like this since, I want to say, like Ndamukong Suh was there in 2009 when that team, they lost to Iowa State, I think like 9-6, 9-7, something like that. They lost by a point to a Texas team that went to the national championship game, in the Big 12 championship game. Just insane team. It was one of Bo Pelini's better teams. This defense is phenomenal. Now, granted, they went up against UTEP, not a very good team, and a Colorado team that is completely one-dimensional. They can't run the football. They don't want to run the football. And Colorado's defense doesn't exist. I mean, part of the reason why Nebraska ran for only 4.3 yards per carry is, in my opinion, because of some of the injuries they have on the offensive line, because they were testing the outside and Colorado has some speed there, and they noticeably slowed the game down in the second half. Some of it was purposeful. I think some of it was also the team just kind of decompressed. I don't know if this team for Nebraska is even capable of playing 4 quarters of great football. But the fact that I'm saying that, and they owned Colorado, is indicative of some major issues for the Buffaloes. They got humbled last night. They will get killed in the Big 12. That's the conclusion I'm drawing, because Big 12 teams are going to play the style of football that Nebraska does, where you run the ball for more times than you pass. This is not the old Big 12. There is no more Dana Holgorsen. There is no more Art Briles. Lincoln Riley's offenses, when they are at their best, run the ball more than pass. And I think that's why they were trying to run the ball so much on Utah State last night, is their rushing offense does not look good. I think Riley, being a good coach, is concerned about that. And I'll get more into USC later this week because they have a bye, and therefore I do want to do kind of a deep dive on them since I haven't done a video. But the Big 12 is physical now. You got Utah, you got Kansas State, Oklahoma State. They've had some struggles in these first 2 weeks, but they've come out with wins, and I think that Gundy will get them right in some capacity or another. You have Kansas, who looked brain dead against Illinois, but Illinois is probably better than they were last season, and for Kansas, with Lance Leipold, I think they'll get some things right, and they ran the ball moderately well on Illinois from what I could tell. You have Arizona, who struggled, but again, high-octane potential on offense. You have Arizona State. You have TCU. You have all these different teams, and there are more who I haven't mentioned. I mean, gosh, Iowa State. Iowa State's up there in the Big 12 race. And there are many others, too, like West Virginia, physical team. UCF. UCF with Gus Malzahn and the running backs that they have and some players. I'm not saying all of those teams are good, because not all of them are, but Colorado isn't even close to good. This is the Deion Sanders show. Uncle Lou is right, and he's right on a lot of things. He's a very underrated channel to follow for just general college football analysis. And when I say general college football analysis, I mean covers all the Power 4 teams, and he's accurate. And his insight combined with his sense of humor makes him an awesome channel. He's correct here. Colorado is not a team. They are a show for Deion Sanders and Shadur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter. And out of those three players, Travis Hunter is the only one who right now I can say is elite. I had a take in the preseason that some people didn't like, that Shadur Sanders wasn't a top 10 quarterback. Because while he has top 5 talent, and if he was more disciplined, and if he was better coached, and if he let go of a little bit of his pride and his ego, he could be the best quarterback in the country. I mean, he has that talent, and you see it. And he is a good QB, great QB. But in a game like this, where I know he's getting pressured, but I'm seeing it multiple times, he's holding onto the ball too long. There are open guys because of the awesome receivers like Travis Hunter, Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn Jr., LeJontay Wester, and he's trying to play hero ball. He's not a top 10 quarterback. You put him on Ohio State's roster. You put him on Miami's roster. Michigan, I'd like to have him. Michigan fan here. I'd love to have Shadur Sanders. But in relationship to him being a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback, of him being a top 5 quarterback, no, absolutely not. And if you want to push back on that, that's fine. Maybe there is a chance that he is. But the numbers don't lie. They don't lie one bit. Against North Dakota State University, who is severely outmatched by Colorado in talent, and Nebraska, who actually has equal talent to Colorado. Through 2 games, 68% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, a 165.8 passer rating. Those are good numbers, but again, an FCS opponent's factored in there. What happens when Colorado plays at Colorado State? They play Baylor, they play UCF, they play Utah, they play Oklahoma State, they play Kansas State, Arizona, more teams. What happens when they face a team of equal caliber talent? When they face good defenses, what'll happen? A 24.4 QBR happens. He is outside of the top 50 in quarterback efficiency. So miss me with him being a top 10 quarterback at this moment. He's good. He is great. He is not elite. He is not near elite. His decision making, while again good, it doesn't match with his talent. He is not efficient. The staff is not efficient. This is the issue with Colorado. Lane Kiffin, I think last year, the prior 2 years with Mike Norvell, efficiency. They have used the portal not as heavily as Deion Sanders has, not even close, but they've used it heavily, and they've gotten good results because those staffs, we don't know if this is still the case with Mike Norvell, has put their players in a position to win, and they have coached up their talent. Colorado's done the opposite. They have coached down their talent. They have. They absolutely have. I mean, when you have Travis Hunter playing full snaps on defense, full snaps on offense, he is an alien, and he wants to do that so he can do that. But the more snaps a player takes in college, you're theoretically shortening their NFL lifespan. I don't think this applies to Travis Hunter necessarily, but as a general rule, it's going to tire out your player. And with Shadur Sanders, just circling back briefly before we move on to Nebraska, the winner of this game, 6.4 yards per pass attempt, a touchdown late in the fourth quarter. That was a Nick Sheridan John O'Korn, Heinrich Harburg of 2023, Jeff Sims level decision. That was mind-boggling to watch. That was, I hope that I can get my stats padded and get a touchdown by just flinging it up there. Pick six by Tommy Hill. And that's also a disrespect of a player like Tommy Hill, who could be a first-rounder, and of a Nebraska defense. The elite QBs, the near-elite QBs, the well-coached teams, they do not disrespect their opponents like that. They don't. They do not test what you know ought not to be tested. So for Colorado, this is it's a pivotal point. Will they go on the road and beat Colorado State in a week? We'll have to see. I would stay far away from that game, though, because Colorado has the talent to go up there and win and potentially dominate, but they haven't done that. So they could also very well go up and lose, or they could implode and get dominated. The only compliment I have to pay for Colorado is Dallin Hayden. They should run him more. He's a tough player. He's a good player. I really like Dallin Hayden and what he did at Ohio State. And besides him, with Travis Hunter, he's an alien and he's elite. He is one of the best players in college football. There's no doubt about that, if not the best player in football. He was one of the few players actually doing anything on the defensive side of the ball, and he carried them on offense. But enough of Colorado there. Nebraska, this is an intriguing point. They can be dominant. We saw that through a half of football where they put up 28 points, a defensive touchdown, 3 offensive touchdowns, 2 were on drives of 70 yards or more. And Dante Dowdle, he's a battering ram. He has some pretty impressive breakaway speed, and then his finishing is phenomenal. Just the way that he'll pound through defenders. He had 17 of the team's 35 carries. He's clearly running back number 1. Clearly. Ramir Johnson got 9 carries for 33 yards. It's awesome to see him getting some significant action in the running back room after not being used much in 2022, injured last season. Gabe Irvin Jr. and Emmett Johnson played sparingly. We'll see what the staff has in store for them in the future, but Nebraska, with injuries on the offensive line, a team that has just been humiliated by opponents with just respectable level of talent for year over year over year. This is the first time that Nebraska has started 2-0 since the 2016 season. And I think this team is coached at a higher level than the 2016 team. I think they are. I don't have much evidence for that outside of the fact that Matt Rule has a proven track record of rebuilding teams. But then again, Mike Riley did well at Oregon State, so I do not want to jump on a hype train that I would actually be inventing by saying that this team is going to compete for the Big Ten this season. I think they're a year away. When you watch Ohio State, and I'll cover Ohio State, in fact, later today, they and maybe Penn State, because I think Bowling Green is an underrated team, and they gave Michigan issues last year, and Michigan went on to win it all. But it's Ohio State, maybe Penn State behind them. We'll see if Oregon and USC can take that next step. USC's impressed me, but we'll just have to see. And with Oregon, they've disappointed, but they still have the talent. Nebraska, they're 2-0. Michigan's 1-1. Iowa's 1-1. Almost said Iowa State. Iowa State is actually 2-0. You look at the Big Ten, and Wisconsin is having a down year so far. They look worse than I expected. Iowa already has suffered a loss, and I predicted them to go 11-1. Yikes, but they could still go 10-2. UCLA doesn't look good. Indiana looks better, but they've also played scrubs. Rutgers relies solely on their ground game and defense. They have some injuries to deal with. Purdue, they've only played one game. They got a bye in this week, week 2, before they're going to host Notre Dame. Illinois beat Kansas, but there's a lot of games that Nebraska can win and can dominate in. There's also games in which they can lose on that schedule, to be very fair. But they could be a top 4 team in the Big Ten. Think about it. They have a quarterback in Dylan Raiola who hasn't thrown an interception yet. 3 touchdowns, 423 yards, a 153.4 passer rating, a 66.9 QBR. And for him being a true freshman and having an offensive line that's not one of the Big Ten's best, a wide receiver core that is good, but it's not USC's, it's not Oregon's, it's not Ohio State's. And you have an offensive coordinator in Marcus Satterfield who, after last season, has questions. We'll see how the offense continues to do this year. For him to come in and be a top 50 QB by efficiency, he has the talent to do much more than that. He's only been sacked 1 time. He is averaging, as of this current day, 7.4 yards per pass attempt and completing over 70% of his passes. He showcased the arm strength, the accuracy, the decision-making, the ability to escape the pocket, to avoid pressure, to improvise when things break down. He's a game changer. He is. And while I don't know if he's going to finish as a top 5 Big Ten quarterback, Big Ten quarterbacks are awful. They are horrid. Cade McNamara, all the goodwill from week 1 is gone after yesterday's performance. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Michigan State's Aiden Childs, you see the ceiling, but then the next throw, you see the floor. 3 touchdowns on the year and 5 interceptions. Luke Altmaier, we'll see if he can, continue to be consistent. You look at Minnesota, Max Brosmer did well against, Rhode Island, a team that no one cares about. Tyler Van Dyke doesn't look very impressive. UCLA is struggling, period. Dylan Gabriel right now has a similar QBR to Dylan Raiola. He's had a lot of fumbles, gotten sacked a lot, has made some questionable decisions. Will Rogers is proven in the sense that he's led the SEC in passing yards, but he's also proven in the sense that there's a clear ceiling there. And Ethan Kaliakmanis is Ethan Kaliakmanis. Billy Edwards and Maryland's QB room is what it is. I mean, there's a massive opportunity here for Nebraska to be not just a good team, but a dominant team. National championship contenders? No, absolutely not. I'd even question if they're capable of winning the Big Ten because, again, I think Ohio State is who I thought they were, honestly. But the rest of the Big Ten is worse than I thought they would be. So consequentially, Ohio State is way, way up here, and Penn State's close behind them, but not at their level. And everyone else, I think, is then a whole tier or 2 below. But with only Ohio State on the schedule, you have USC, who could be better than I anticipated, but I picked them to beat LSU and Utah State, and I picked them to beat LSU close. They did. I picked them to, own Utah State in the preseason because it's Utah State, and they did. And I still picked them to go around 500. So I need to see USC play Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Penn State, and depending on how they do in that 4-game stretch, that'll determine how legit they are. I think they're top 25, but I think Nebraska is too. Those 2 games and a road trip to Iowa, and yes, there's Rutgers, Purdue, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana. I mean, all the conference games I could see outside of UCLA being a potential loss, but the majority of them as of right now, I see Nebraska winning a lot of these games. I see what I saw in the preseason, 9-3, 10-2. But I think because of some of the performances in the first 2 weeks, I think 11-1 may be the potential ceiling of this team now and not just 10-2. But I'm not going to predict that because you do need to see more. You need to see Nebraska play good 4 quarters of football because I'm telling you, Iowa will play in that rivalry game at night in Kinnick Stadium. And with Tim Lester being in his first year as the OC, I bet you they'll improve offensively as the year goes on. If McNamara continues to look horrible, they'll probably put in Brennan Sullivan. And their offensive line, Iowa's, is legit. The reason why they got shut down in the second half is because It's similar to Michigan. They don't have a passing game. So Texas could just stack the box and slow down Michigan's rushing attack, even though it is a good, great rushing attack. It's the same thing with Iowa. Iowa State, John Heacock consciously realized you don't have a passing attack. So we're going to stack the box and we're going to step up and we're going to stop you. And that's kind of what happened with Colorado. But the inverse is they don't have a rushing attack. They're not going to run the football. So we're going to play very good pass defense. We are going to get pressure on you with 4 guys, 3 guys. And we're going to play to your one-dimensionality and make you fully one-dimensional and beat you in your specialty. That's what Texas did yesterday. That's what Iowa State did yesterday. That's what Nebraska did. Having a balanced attack on both sides of the ball, having a diverse set of players with different skill sets is critical. Critical in today's college football. It's also no coincidence, too, and I'm saying this because it's something I've underrated, I think, is quarterback play. All 3 of those winners that I mentioned had the better performing quarterbacks that day. But Nebraska can be dominant. They can control opponents, game control them to death, run the ball on them. They'll stop the run. They held Colorado to 16 yards rushing. A part of that was the fact they had 6 sacks, 10 TFLs, and they had 6 players with a sack each. Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson, Jamari Butler, MJ Sherman, Princewell Unman-Malin, Willis McGahee the fourth. Is he related to Miami running back Willis McGahee? I think he is because his birthplace is in Miami, Florida, but let me know if he just happens to have a similar name or if that is Willis McGahee's son, because that's pretty cool. John Bullock had 2 TFLs. It's just really, really phenomenal game. And then, of course, Tommy Hill with the pick 6. He had a good game. It was just an overall dominant performance by the Nebraska Cornhuskers. My game MVP here is Dante Dowdle. 17 carries, 74 yards, 4.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. That offensive line was moving Colorado's defensive line. There were some struggles there, I will tell you, and that's probably an area where if you're Matt Rule and the staff on offense, you do wonder why the offense was unable to do anything. Unable to do anything in the second half. Nebraska and Colorado, too, both had like over 100 yards in penalties. There were some questionable calls, but you got to power through officiating. You have to overcome adversity that may be unfairly thrown your way or take advantage of adversity that's unfairly thrown the other way. You have to do that. Nothing in life is going to be totally 100% fair, and you have to overcome that. And if you're Nebraska with that second half, that is something to be concerned about moving forward, is what happens if, like, I hate to be a pessimist here, but Nebraska has previously, we've seen this time and time again, like under Scott Frost, for example, or in Matt Rule teams last year's Matt Rule team, not Matt Rule teams, where you win the first half, but then you lose the second half and consequentially lose the game. I don't think Colorado was well coached enough or balanced enough as a team and roster to truly test if Nebraska has gained that ability to play a good 3-4 quarters, more than just a good half of football, and to win close games. Nebraska has not been in a close game yet this season, so that's an interesting development to follow. And that's, I think, in part is determined by the offensive line. The defensive line did their job, and Nebraska dominated the trenches, and Dante Dowdle followed through. That's why he's my player of the game. 17 carries, 74 yards, 4.4 yards per pop, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 2 out of 3 offensive touchdowns. And through the air, he didn't have anything, but he didn't fumble the ball. He looked powerful. Right now, he is Nebraska's best running back. It was a great job, phenomenal job, a great move by Matt Rule and company to get him from Oregon in the transfer portal. Great game by Nebraska. I'm proud of the Cornhuskers, and thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell. Do all of those things even if you didn't like the video, because we all have things that we disagree with each other on, and unlike some others who like to just shut out those who disagree with them, I like people who disagree with me. They keep me honest, and they keep me grounded. Thank you to Crash2488 and Nebraska Rascal for being Heisman Patreon members of the Heisman tier. Thanks to Chris Lane, Connor Little, OH, Ismar, and Tyler Nye for being All-American members. And thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell for being All-Conference members. If you want to get merchandise, you can sign up as a Heisman member for $25 a month for 6 months, and you'll get free merchandise of your choice signed by me. If you just want to purchase merchandise with no membership strings attached, you won't get it signed by me. It'll be shipped directly to your door, though, in timely fashion, thanks to Threadless. And you can visit my merchandise store via the link in the description or down below in the pinned comment. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Go Buffaloes and go Big Red.